So let's continue with more. 36 minutes after the hour, and Arthur Lieber, welcome to the Bill Cunningham Show.
Bill, thank you for having me.
According to your bio, you're a progressive educator for more than 4 decades. You think Obama's plan is nothing more than a second cousin to No Child Left Behind. This week in a YouTube address, Obama talked about the race to the top, which focuses on the teaching to the test educational approach that plagues education today. Would you give us a little short explanation of what is Race to the Top?
It is a program by which states compete with one another to get additional federal money based on the test scores that they have.
Well, how is that necessarily different than No Child Left Behind?
No Child Left Behind was focused more on individual school districts and schools to a certain extent, even teachers. But neither one of them addressed the needs of individual students. They're both looking for macro data, which is of no particular consequence or help to an individual student who's trying to learn.
Yeah, because basically you teach to the test, you take the test, you can regurgitate the answers, but what have you learned?
It reminds me of the 60 Minutes piece on last Sunday about Lance Armstrong and others doping with Tour de France. I mean, people just adjust to whatever the rules are there, whether it's a wise policy or not. And the teaching to the test has really narrowed down the curriculum which students get exposed to. There's a lot of history, a lot of science, a lot of art, a lot of music that's been eliminated just so that people can try to have good test scores. And if they don't come out good, in a lot of cases, they'll just manipulate it to make it look good.
And I think all over the country that teachers and school districts are being caught giving answers to students or taking the test for them to make them look better and get raises.
In public policy, I think there are certain questions you have to ask. Does something pass the giggle test? Does it pass the BS test? And I think that if you're setting up a program where you can pretty well predict that there's going to be cheating, then why do it? And I think that we have an education establishment which perpetuates itself by coming up with one program after another, trying to measure things which really can't be measured that well.
How does the federal government stop a teacher from cheating on a standardized test, the good result of which gives her a raise and makes the school district look good? How do you get inside all the hundreds of thousands of classrooms in this country and actually monitor what the teacher's doing?
Well, I'm not sure how the federal government would do that. I don't think that's really their mandate. In some schools, there is a sense of integrity, and principals are able to oversee what teachers are doing. In some districts, administrators will take a look at what principals are doing. But overall, I think human nature is going to prevail here. And I think there's another component in human nature, which is curiosity on the part of students to learn. And that's what's being suppressed while they're being coerced into a system which basically the competition is among some adults to try to look better than others.
So if a area of, say, geography or mathematics or social studies or whatever is not on a test, it will not be studied in class.
Absolutely. I mean, here in Missouri, we have state testing, and there are no questions on Thomas Jefferson because he's not in the curriculum.
And so students go through grade schools in Missouri without knowing that Thomas Jefferson was the third president, knows nothing about the Louisiana Purchase, knows nothing about the Barbary Coast, knows nothing about Sally Hemings, maybe.
All of which is important, and I think, those who learn, they learn by teachers who game the system, and I think that's the case in New York and California. I'm sure it is in Cincinnati, that teachers who are so committed to providing opportunities for their students to learn that they're just going to go under the radar so that they can teach kids what they think is important.
Arthur Lieber, why do we spend, this is a macro question for you, why do we spend more on public education than any country in the world per capita and get so bad results?
Well, I think that we set up a system where we created a bureaucracy and we need to perpetuate it. And besides paying for them, I think a lot of them come up with programs which basically don't do much to help kids learn. So, I think your question is really a good one, and we need to take a good look at what it is that students are learning and what it is that they're not learning.
Well, they're obviously not learning a lot, and we have a major problem. Is it behavioral? Is it the fact that many students show up incapable of learning because of the home environment they came from?
Well, I think the home environment for a lot of the students clearly creates a problem, makes it hard for them to learn, just to have time to read or whatever. I think it's a myriad of factors, home, teaching, economic level, a tremendous amount of variables there.
Well, we had hopes, at least some did, that President Barack Obama would think outside the box, break the mold. He was the most unique president ever elected in this country's history, perhaps in my lifetime. Hopefully I got 30 more years to go, that he will be the most unique president ever elected in this country's history. He has thought within the box as opposed to outside the box when it came to public education. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, Bill, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I think that there are so many of us, and it sounds like you're one of them, who just had tremendous hopes when he was elected, and thinking that he'd be willing to do exactly that, think outside the box, because the box itself is really confined. And I don't see it happening. I question also, as much as I like him and want to support him, I'm not sure how good a negotiator he is either. I mean, he gave up the public option and got what in return? Maybe something, but we sure don't know what it is.
Now, the cost of medical care is not going down, it's going up. He said that people won't have to give up their own insurance. There are thousands of people dropped every month in the country from insurance. It looks like public education is no better. And it seems to me like if we took the money given to the Department of Education and simply block granted it to the states and said, here's the money, innovate, come up with proposals, forget about testing, forget about Washington oversight. We haven't done much of a job for about the last 30 years in the Department of Education. You innovate, and then we'll be a clearinghouse for your ideas. Wouldn't that be a better approach?
Perhaps. I mean, I don't have a lot of confidence in the states to do any better than the federal government would do. So, there is an alternative called the voucher system, and I'm not completely sold on it, but I think we need to test it more, where actually it's the parents who have the money. It goes to them, and they are consumers, and they direct their funds towards schools which they think are going to serve their children well.
Now you're talking.
It's not the way Democrats talk in general, but and I have to say that I'm not certain by any means that it will work, but I think we need to try it because so many other things are not trying. You talk about the Department of Education. I ran for Congress last year in part saying that I think that not that it should be abolished, but that the people in it should spend half of their days teaching students. Wouldn't
that be a novel approach? It seems like when the Department of Energy was created, the cost of gasoline skyrocketed. When the Department of Education was created, the cost of education skyrocketed. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm not so sure we don't have 50 laboratories of democracy that we could experiment with the state to see if these theories work. And to have, I would love to take the state of Florida or Wisconsin or Ohio or Utah and say, okay, we're going to try this model in Wisconsin for the next 4 years to see if this works. Then if it works in Wisconsin, take it to the other states. What's wrong with that?
I don't have a particular problem with that, except a certain skepticism about the state departments of education. But, when we're looking at does it work or not, I mean, I don't care what test scores are. If we have a huge percentage of our population that thinks Barack Obama was born in Kenya or is a Muslim, or who think that it's good for middle or lower income people to have tax breaks for the wealthy, I think that in itself is evidence that our system isn't working. And so I think the way in which we ultimately judge whether or not our schools are working is if we have a better educated electorate that's more capable of dealing with facts and then assimilating it and coming out with reasonable conclusions.
I can recall when Bush and Cheney were in the White House, president, vice president, for months and years, liberals were saying Bush was selected, not elected. He was illegitimate. I can recall the fights over Florida that went on and on and on. And even after USA Today and other AP and other objective presenters said, hey, he won Florida anyway, the left did not give up on it. And for many years, they vilified and satanized, especially Dick Cheney and George Bush. So I saw much of the same vitriol against Bush that I now see against Obama.
Well, I can't disagree with you. I think that, two things that Bush did. One, the tax breaks for the wealthy, and two, going into Iraq for reasons that didn't seem related at all to 9/11, gave a lot of people, not just on the left, good reason to be suspect of what he was doing. I think even in interviews prior to being elected, his Palin-esque lack of knowledge was somewhat alarming. But I think Democrats can be equally unfair to the way Republicans are, and we really need to move beyond the partisanship, and that means each side being willing to consider any good idea, regardless of where it comes from. So I'm kind of a heretic as a Democrat in saying let's experiment with vouchers. But so what? If it makes sense, let's do it.
All right, Arthur Lieber, what is your website, if any?
For the book is called An Unlikely Candidate, so you can go to www.anunlikelycandidate.com.
All right, Arthur Lieber, we'll see what happens. We'll leave it at that, and good luck to you.
All right, thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Arthur Lieber from Missouri somewhere. Let's continue now with your calls.